Welcome to Tamara's Silly Tales. I'm Tamara, and I spill the tea on your favorite reality stars. Married at First Sight, Season 14, Episode 15. Ooh, this was a difficult episode for me to sit through. I was so bored I kept falling asleep. I tried watching it the next day and kept pausing it to do random Google searches, talk on the phone, wipe down a counter, anything but watch this show. So instead of recapping a boring episode, I decided to pick the moments that stood out the most. So here are my top 8 moments of episode 15. Mark says, I've been struggling with the same thing in a marriage. We'll have good times and really bad times. In Vermont, I use the word hyper, I think, and it triggered something in her. I wouldn't even know that. I have no idea which words trigger you. And Dr. Pepper said, well, hyper is not a compliment. No, but it's the truth. If someone is doing something negative to you, you point it out, not compliment them for it. So he says that she'll want to wrestle and pinch and bite on him, and he'll say, stop. And Dr. Pepper says to Karen, and when he says to stop, do you stop? I don't think he's ever told me he doesn't like it, and when he says stop, it's usually playful. Dr. Pepper sees this as a lack of understanding each other. Now, if this were the other way around, if Mark was biting on her, pinching her, and forcing himself on her, and she said stop several times, Dr. Pepper would break out the no means no t-shirts. But when Karen does it, they just don't understand each other. What part of stop is hard to understand, Dr. Pepper? So Karen goes off and tells Mark, you try to justify your behavior by saying it was just a joke. You took it wrong. You were too sensitive. You apologize and walk away, but it's never resolved. I don't care anymore. I'm not going to let you hurt me. You don't get to come in anymore. That's it. Wall is up. You're out. Dr. Pepper says, why don't you ask him if he doesn't care? Because I don't want to hear his answer. Because I'm not sure he's the right guy for me. I want someone who will lean into me and not ask me to be less. I want someone who will try new food. So Dr. Pepper put the weight of their problems in their marriage on Mark the Shock. She concluded that if Mark gave Karen the attention and affection she needs, then a lot of their problems would go away. Now, I hope this is just bad editing because there is no way that Karen's sharp tongue and demeaning humor can be resolved by a hug and watching Netflix. In the end, Mark rambles on, give me the space to get there. I know how to love someone. Plenty of times I've loved and have been overly romantic when I haven't been. Like, give me everything I need. You want to be told you're important. You want to be told that no matter what, you're going to make it through. I know how to touch your heart. Tootie explains that their arguments are getting better, that they end them more quickly, and they get over them faster. And Dr. Pepper gives him like a nod of approval. Why are you all still fighting like real housewives of wherever, though? So he gave an example of his growth. He said they got into a very heated argument recently, and he told her just to shut up and stop talking, and then he walked in the bathroom, and then he came back and apologized, saying that he should never talk to her that way because she's his wife. Yes, Tootie, thank you. You gotta stop talking to your wife like she's some random dude who just stole Joe Gondola. They talked about their 2-year timeline for having babies, and Tootie is concerned that she will be overwhelmed with starting a nursing career, being a new mom, and having to deal with his foolishness. And Katina said that she is concerned about being overwhelmed and trying to keep up with the level of attention Tootie needs. She said he can be draining. Everyone seems to be concerned about Tootie's needs. Do we even know what Katina truly wants and what she expects from a husband? To the confessional cam, Tootie said if he was Katina, he would just lock in and do what needs to be done to better himself. Now, thankfully, the producers asked a follow-up question because I had no idea what he meant by lock in. And the producer said, so you think she should say no on decision day to better herself? Crying, he said, yes, if you truly care for somebody, you want them to do what's best for them. So where is all this coming from? I mean, does he not plan on helping her at all with this imaginary baby? Is he thinking babysitters and nannies will be extinct in 2 years? I don't understand why this seems like the impossible dream to him. So Karen is talking to the camera and saying, I think I've spent most of my time with Mark telling me that I'm too much, too loving, too caring, too generous, too much, too much, too much. I feel like I spent the bulk of last night listening to how I'm too much in 5 different ways. So they show Mark telling her that she's too much because she keeps pinching and poking at him and she won't listen when he says stop. It makes me realize that he needs to find a lesser woman because I don't need to make myself any less for anyone else. It's not about being a lesser woman. It's about being a lesser annoying. Somehow she seems to think of herself as this super positive, Earth Mother, kumbaya, delicate flower, whereas everyone else seems to see her as the person most likely to start a fight. Jasmine and Picky talk about wanting to start thinking about having kids in 18 months. Dr. Pepper asks, what are you trying now to have kids? Like, in other words, like, what's going on with the intimacy? And Jasmine says they still don't kiss. She said this is the happiest she's been in this relationship, but she's just not there yet. And she doesn't know if she needs to kiss him to see if there's something there, but she doesn't have the urge to like run up and give him a kiss. Now that statement seemed to take Picky back a little bit. To the confessional cam, he expresses disappointment in hearing Jasmine say that. Now, I believe Jasmine thinks he's cute, but not attracted to him. As much time as they spend together taping this show and sleeping in the same bed, if she thought he was attractive, she'd at least be a little curious to know what those lips taste like, right? Girl, stop playing and prepare this man to hear no on decision day. Since Noisy didn't grow up in Boston, they went to a dance studio instead. So she says when she thinks of her childhood, she thinks of dancing and having fun, even though throughout the season and this episode, she talks about the pain and anguish she had as a child. Anyway, Noisy looked like she was having fun, but Steve looked super serious, like he was auditioning to be a Backstreet Boy backup dancer. I was disappointed that they didn't show us the routine that they learned. So after the lesson, Noisy said that she was not encouraged to express herself as a child, so dancing was her way of expressing herself. She explained to Steve that when she has a hard time talking to him about her feelings, it's because it's not something that they did in her household. She said when she's arguing about things like her social media, that's her way of holding on to her individuality. Girl, social media does not make you an individual. Believe it or not, social media wasn't even a thing when most of us were your age. We had to rely on our personalities and bad fashion choices to stand out as individuals. So Steve said he's not trying to stifle who she is as a person, but when he communicates to her, he tries to word things in a way that doesn't hurt her feelings and is always keeping her well-being in mind, and that he's simply asking for that in return. I mean, seriously, Noisy, how many different ways do you need this issue to be explained before you decide that you don't need to tell strangers about your marital problems on Instagram? So Dr. Pepper asked Steve and Noisy about their disagreement regarding moving in together after decision day. Like, how have you decided to handle it? Steve said that he never thought about not living together. He had to understand her reasons why and realize it had a lot to do with her feeling a sense of accomplishment for gaining her independence. So Dr. Pepper says, well, let me just say, so I'm not being a hypocrite, that me and my husband live separately. Say what now, Dr. Pepper? So I had to hit the internet and look into this. And according to Gossip Next Door, when Dr. Pepper met her husband, she lived with an assistant who helped her organize her life. And her husband wasn't comfortable with the idea of living with someone who was unrelated. Then add in Dr. Pepper's 3 dogs, and they thought it would be best to live separately. So I guess living with her assistant was more important than living with her man. So she explains that this is her second marriage and she's been married for 16 years, but in her first marriage of 23 years, they raised kids and they lived together. So, how are you two going to show up and stay connected if you don't live together? They don't know. Why don't you enlighten them based on your 16 years of experience, Doc? So, Steve looks at Noisy like, this is your idea, you tell it. And so, Noisy said that they haven't worked out all of those details yet, and she's not sure what it's going to look like. But I know I want you to be in my life every day. I don't know how we can do that, but just so we don't have resolution for everything we're going through, we might not have this one figured out by decision day. I suspect Noisy didn't expect to get picked to do this show. She doesn't seem ready to be married this fast at all. It sounds like she needs a traditional courtship where they swipe right on each other, awkwardly date for several months. She gives him a marry me or I'm leaving you ultimatum. They're engaged for 3.5 years. They finally get married while she's 18 weeks pregnant and he's requesting a DNA test to prove the baby is his. Then they live dysfunctionally ever after. So this was a sad scene. They show Mark and Karen at the vet with Mark's 14-year-old cat. He had some marks on his eye and back that needed to get checked. And Karen is being super loving to the cat, wrapping it in a blanket and petting it. And then Mark explains that the x-ray showed something on one of his lungs that will spread. So it's probably in the cat's best interest that they say goodbye. Mark and Karen love up on the cat before it's put down. So within 7 weeks, Mark married a stranger, has had bed bugs, lost his apartment, lost his job, and had to put down his cat. I mean, if he don't need a vacation, then nobody does. So Steve and Noisy go to Steve's childhood home, and he shares a stuffed animal that was his favorite from when he was younger, named Sparky. To the confessional cam, Noisy says, he's like 38. It's a long time to hold on to a stuffed animal. Says the woman who's holding on to her singlehood and doesn't want to let go of her apartment to go live with her husband. So he shows her in his yearbook that he was voted the best dancer in high school. And he played Noisy, a song he and his friend wrote and rapped called Get Down, with lyrics like, get down, when I get mine, girl so fine, booty like that, dudes going blind, shake them hips, just like this, cause we're out of control, floor tearing, they all staring, we don't care. I would say, Steve, don't quit your day job, but too late.